The sky above the desert moon of Keleth burned violet the day Captain Amon Hali chose not to run. He had not meant to become anyone's hero. He had been a reconnaissance officer for the Outer Rim Coalition, sent to observe rumors of unrest among the native alien clans. The reports had described them as divided, primitive, locked in endless ritual wars beneath crystalline spires. The reports had been wrong. Armin first saw her in the ruins of a shattered caravan, silver banners torn and scattered like fallen stars. The wind carried the scent of scorched metal and something sweeter like crushed blossoms. Bodies lay everywhere, and in the center of it all, crouched beside a fallen woman clad in ceremonial armor, was a small alien child. Her skin shimmered, faintly opalescent in the dying light. Two delicate hornlets curved back from her temples. Her large eyes, far too ancient for a small face, were fixed on the woman at her feet. Her mother. The girl did not cry. She simply sat there as raiders in blackened bone armor stalked through the wreckage, checking for survivors. Armin's orders were clear. Observe. Do not interfere. But when one of the raiders lifted his bouts, arrowhead dipped in thick violet toxin and aimed directly at the child's back. Something inside Armin broke. He moved before he could think. He vaulted from his concealment and threw himself between the arrow and the girl. The first poised shaft struck his shoulder. The second pierced his side. The third buried deep in his chest. The pain was immediate and searing, as if liquid fire had entered his veins. He collapsed to one knee, but he did not fall. The raiders hesitated. Humans were rare in this region, unpredictable. Amon ripped the arrow from his shoulder and staggered to his feet, weapon raised. He fired twice. Two raiders dropped. Run, he shouted to the girl. But she didn't run. Instead she crawled toward him more. Arrows flew. He turned his back to her and took them. One in his spine, one in his thigh. The toxin worked fast. His vision blurred. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. The last thing he saw before the world went black was the child's small hands, gripping his blood-soaked uniform, and her glowing eyes blazing with something far stronger than fear. When Amon Hole opened his eyes again, he thought he was dead. Light poured through towering crystal windows. The air smelled of incense and unfamiliar flowers. Silken banners in shades of sapphire and gold drifted from a vaulted ceiling that seemed carved from living stone. He lay on a bed softer than anything he had ever known. He tried to sit up. Pain flared, but it was distant, dulled. His body felt strange like a skull as a door of shimmering metal parted silently and she entered at first. His mind refused to accept what he was seeing. The child was gone. In her place stood a woman, tall, regal, radiant. Her opalescent skin shimmered like moonlight on water. The small hornlets, he remembered, had grown into elegant curves crowned with delicate golden filigree. A mantle of deep blue silk fell from her shoulders, clasped by a sigil shaped like twin stars. Behind her an honor guard lowered their heads. As she stepped forward alone, then to his utter shocks he knelt. Her forehead touched the floor beside his bed. "My life is yours," she said, her voice clear and resonant. "My queenhood is built upon your sacrifice." Armand stared at her, heart racing. "How long?" he croaked. 50 cycles of your world," she answered softly. 50 years. The word struck harder than any arrow. "You were dying," she continued. "The venom that pierced you was distilled from the heart of the void serpent. No healer among my people could cleanse it." He swallowed. "So I didn't survive." "You did not," she said gently. "Not as you were." She lifted her head, and their eyes met. "When you shielded me, you fulfilled the ancient covenant of the guard, the prophecy that one not of our blood would give his life freely for the heir of Lith. My mother died that day. I was the last of her line." Her hands trembled slightly as she continued. "Our high priests placed your body within the chamber of renewal. They bound your failing human cells with our own regenerative essence. It took decades. Entire generations waited. You rebuilt me," Amon whispered. "We refused to let our savior fade into dust." Silence stretched between them. He swung his legs over the edge of the bed. His muscles responded instantly, stronger than before. He flexed his hand, noticing faint iridescent veins beneath his skin. "What am I now?" She rose slowly to her full height. "You are Amon Hale," she said firmly. "The shield of Lithara." She hesitated. "And you are bound to me." The weight in her voice told him this was more than gratitude. "Bound how?" he asked carefully. She gestured toward his chest. He looked down. A faint sigil glowed over his heart, twin stars intertwined. "When you took the arrows meant for me," she said, "our life forces intertwined. The ritual that restored you sealed that bond. By our law, and by the old magic." Her voice soft. "And you are my eternal consort." Amon blinked. "Queen," he said slowly, "I saved a child." She smiled, small but luminous. "And that child spent 50 years becoming worthy of the man who gave everything for her." The world he had entered was not the fractured land he had seen half a century ago. Under her rule, the clans were united. The raiders who slaughtered her caravan had been hunted down. The void serpent venom trade eradicated. Crystal cities rose from once barren desert sea had forged peace through strength, and through the story of the human shield of him. Statues of a man with outstretched arms stood in every province Armon found it overwhelming. I didn't do this, he told her one evening as they stood on a balcony overlooking the capital. Twin moons bathed the city in silver light. You inspired it, she replied. He studied her profile. You were just a kid. She turned to him fully now. In your eyes, perhaps a faint sadness flickered there, but our kind matures differently. Even then, I understood what you chose. She stepped closer. I remember the sound of the arrows striking you. I remember your blood on my hands. Her fingers brushed his chest over the glowing sigil. I swore that day that if you lived, I would build a world worthy of that sacrifice. Emotion tightened his throat, and if I hadn't, he asked, quietly. Her voice did not waver. Then I would have ruled in your memory and joined you in death when my time ended. He realized then that this was not a girl's infatuation. It was devotion forged over half a century. Why kneel? He asked suddenly. When I woke, her gaze softened. Because before I am queen, I am the child you saved. The wind. We've lifted her silver white hair. And because love, when freely given, deserves reverence, not assumption. The word hung between them, that Armon had lost everyone he had known 50 years. His world had moved on. Everyone he cared for was gone, but here stood a woman who had carried his memory like a flame through decades of war and rebuilding. Do I have a choice? He asked gently. Her chin lifted, not proudly, but, honestly, yes. She placed her hand over his. You are not a prisoner of prophecy. If you wish to leave this world, we will open the stars to you. If you wish to live as a free citizen, you may. Her voice trembled slightly now. But if you choose to stand beside me, it will not be because of debt. It would be because of love. Armon looked out over the city, over a civilization that existed, in part, because one man had refused to step aside. He looked back at her, the child, who had become a queen. He thought of the arrows he would take. Them again. Every time. Slowly. Deliberately. He lowered himself to one knee before her. Gasps rose from the guards behind them. You knelt first, he said quietly. Seems only fair. Her eyes widened. Then, for the first time since he had awakened, she laughed to sound bright and unburdened. Armon took her hand and pressed it to his lips. I didn't save a queen, he murmured. I saved a little girl who deserved to live. And I, she whispered, stepping closer, lived to become worthy of the man who saved me. Above them, the twin moons aligned. The sigil over his heart flared warmly, echoing the one that now glowed faintly beneath the fabric at her collarbone. Not chains, not fate, choice, 50 years ago. He had taken poisoned arrows for a child. Now, he chose to stand beside her, not as a martyr, not as a legend, but as her equal. And as their people watched from crystal towers and moonlit streets, the Queen of Lithara lifted her eternal consort to his feet. Together, they faced the stars. This time